Good morning, everyone. I am Nick, the Naval Architect, and you want to hire me, or at least someone like me. But there's a problem. How do you go about doing that? Welcome to this first video in a series on how to hire a marine consultant. Now, if you own a ship or you do marine operations, chances are that you will need to hire a marine consultant at some point or another. Let's start off in this video with fundamental question number one. Why do you actually need a marine consultant? After all, they're expensive. We are an expensive set of engineers. What is the value that they provide? Well, that's what we'll be talking about today. First, let's get some basics out of the way. Number one, this is just my own personal approach. You will find other opinions out there that will even disagree with me, and that's perfectly fine. What's important is that you listen to all of those opinions, consider everybody's advice, and form your own opinion. This video series is not really meant to be the one answer to how to hire a marine consultant. Rather, it's meant to set a whole bunch of expectations to get you started on asking the right questions. And in doing that, it is going to outline the requirements for a perfect marine consultant. Now, you're never going to find a perfect marine consultant. If you find someone that meets every single requirement and every single suggestion in this video series, then you're missing something. So let's stop worrying about being perfect. Let's stop worrying about finding the person who has the most impressive marketing. It isn't about being the best. It's about finding the marine consultant who is the best fit for you, who matches your needs. So why do you actually need a marine consultant? Well, it comes down to three basic things that I'm going to summarize up as ships sink, they're expensive, and they are complicated. So let's talk about how a marine consultant helps with each one of those three problems. Here's an interesting statistic for you. Did you know that one ship sinks every 4 days? Now that's on average, taken from 2006 to 2015. Every 4 days, a ship sinks. Now you're talking about the loss of the value of the ship, the loss of the value of the cargo, and endangering the lives of the crew. And I really care about that last one, endangering the lives of the crew. Every 4 days this happens. That's not even including all the near misses and small damages. Now, here's the fallacy and the danger of ship safety. Is everybody listens to this statistic, you're thinking this right now at home, is that, well, that's true, but only other people have problems with ships sinking. It could never happen to me. Well, it can. And that's really the dangerous part, is it is a risky business being in shipping. There are harsh environments to deal with. So what you need is somebody that can bias the odds in your favor. And that is where the marine consultant comes in. Now, how does a marine consultant bias those odds? How do they give you an edge? Well, they come in as a scientist. And that's really what makes the consultant different from any other expert that you could hire. They act as a scientist. And science brings safety. It brings certainty, and that's really important. Now, to put this in contrast, I want you to cast your memory back to very long ago, hundreds of years ago, let's say early 1800s. Back then, we still had shipping. It wasn't that different from what we have today, apart from the technology. Now, back then, we didn't have as much science to work with. So you went out by building a ship by pretty much following best practices of the day, maybe trying a couple things that looked pretty. Not necessarily smart, just looked pretty. And you loaded up with crew and cargo, you sent your ship out. If things didn't go well, you found out because your ship was at the bottom of the sea, with all hands and all cargo lost. That was how we used to test things. So that's a really bad proposition if you're the ship or the crew or the cargo. Let's cast forward a few decades, a few centuries even, to the modern era. we've introduced a heavy dose of science, of experimental analysis into everything. And now suddenly, all of those new things that we might try, we can test those using modern science. We can perform analysis in the safety of the office. That's what your consultant does for you, is they run through 100 different ways that your ship can sink, and they test all of that on their computer at their office, so that that is 100 ways that your ship cannot sink out in real life. That is the edge that you get by hiring a marine consultant. Is they bring all of that science to bear, and they give you very good odds that you are working with a safe ship that is not going to sink. It's all about risk mitigation. And when you're talking about your life on the line, you really care about risk mitigation and the tools that we can use to help you. We have talked about safety quite a bit. Now let's talk about costs. Ships are really expensive. Here is another interesting fact for you. Take a typical Panamax ship and look at just the fuel costs over its entire 30-year lifetime. That works out to something in the range of $407 million. Now just imagine all of that money. Just imagine what you could do if you could save even 1% of that amount. $4 million savings. I mean, that's the annual operating budget of a typical small engineering firm. It's a huge amount of savings. And that really brings us to the point is that ships involve big expenses, big operating costs, and you really care about efficiency. You need to worry about reducing those operating costs. And that's something that your marine consultant is an expert in, is understanding all of those trade-offs, understanding how to find the best fit for your specific operational profile. Because you can't just go out there and say, oh, I want the best of everything. Most of these efficiency gains come at the cost of a higher upfront payment. You have to pay more money upfront to save money down the road. So the marine consultant is going to know that they need to balance that upfront cost with your need for later on efficiency improvements. So once again, we're marrying science with working for you and understanding your needs. And this brings me to the third and final reason that you want to hire a marine consultant. Ships are very complicated. Now, I know we would like to think of a ship as just this indestructible tank that can take anything. Well, remember how I said that we've been constantly pushing efficiency and we've always been trying to reduce fuel consumption? Well, that means your ship is not a tank anymore. It's gotten more complicated. The design margins have gotten slimmer. Every single thing has its own different limits, and everything has 2 or 3 different ways that it could fail. It's a lot more complicated. It's better to think of your ship as a space shuttle. You've got millions of different parts, millions of different things that can fail, all the way from your steel structure to your main engine, and you're going to take all of that and put it in an environment that I would say is just as extreme as space. The sea is a very extreme environment with a lot of hazards. But because you're trying to keep costs down, you're going to take this incredibly complex machinery and get it built by the lowest bidder. Now that right there is a recipe for problems. Reliability is going to be a huge issue because of the complexity. And that is again where your marine consultant comes in. Is they're aware of all of those different parts. Remember how I said each part has 2 or 3 different ways it could fail? Well, they know about each one of those ways. And they are there to work with the fabricators, the shipyards. They are there to discuss which parts can you cut back a little bit on, where can you make substitutions, and where do you have to hold the line? Where do you have to keep to that specification? And that's a very difficult thing to understand. Wouldn't you want that kind of an asset to help you out to manage this and keep your ship reliable? Because a ship that's stuck with engine problems is not making any money. So it's worth the investment to ensure a reliable vessel. So to summarize everything up, everything that I've been talking about really comes down to risk mitigation. We talked about safety, efficiency, reliability. All of that is really about risk mitigation. I mean, you think about the safety. you've got to realize your ship can sink. There is a risk involved in that, and we want to reduce that. We think about the efficiency. We think about the risk of having to pay all of these huge fuel costs. That's important. It's a danger if your ship can't make enough money to cover its costs. And then we even come down to reliability. Remember I said a broken ship earns no money? It all comes down to the fact that shipping is a risky business. There are lots of things that can go wrong. And do you really want to take that gamble with an even playing field? Wouldn't you rather have a marine consultant to bring this whole host of expertise and knowledge to bear and give you a much better chance that any risks are not going to be a bad result? Thanks for watching. I hope you liked it. Hey, did you know that there is a magic button down below? Click the like button or even the subscribe button, and I will make more videos for you.